Welcome back to the Torah Health and Fitness class based on the book Body and Soul. Last session, I presented to you the Torah view of exercise, how the Rambam and many other Gedolim, all the way through Rav Yaakov Weinberg, Zal, telling us exercise is a mitzvah, an obligation, we should be doing it. And it's not just a Hellenistic idea, it's not just for the Greeks, it's for Jews who care about Judaism and about being Avdei Hashem, being good Jews, holy Jews. Exercise should be part of our lives. And when people hear this, someone actually came up to me in shul not long ago, said, I'm reading your book and I'm having a hard time because it goes against everything I was taught in yeshiva. And it's a big transition for a lot of people. So to help make that transition, I brought in today my co-author, Dr. Dan Grove, and I want to ask you, Dr. Grove, one simple question to help our audience, which is, and our audience is Torah Anytime viewers and possibly podcast viewers around the world. Simple question, and this is not just for a guy who's in yeshiva, it's really for anybody, because many people will say, yeah, I know it's a good idea to exercise, but I don't. I don't exercise, and how do I get started? Like, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't, want to be jogging around the neighborhood. It's not me. What can I do that would be called exercise the minimal way? How do I get started? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so, I talk to my patients about this all the time. I think it's first of all, extremely important to understand that the most important thing to make you a healthy person is exercise, regular activity. I work in an ICU, and I don't think I've ever seen, or I almost never see, patients in the hospital, either in the regular hospital or in the ICU, who exercise regularly. Those people just don't come to the hospital. And that's because their bodies are strong enough that if they get sick, they have the ability to bounce back. But when people don't exercise, they get sick, they get stuck in bed, they get deconditioned worse, and then they can't get out of bed, and it starts this whole terrible snowball effect. So the question about how to start is you have to create a commitment to exercise, and a commitment to exercise is the most important thing. The problem is that when people commit to something or they create a commitment, they think they're creating a commitment, but instead of a commitment, they're actually creating an expectation, which means somebody will say, I'm committing to exercise, but really they're saying, I'm expecting to be successful at exercise. Now, the problem with an expectation is that whether you achieve it, whether you meet the expectation or not, it's an issue of success or failure, and it's really going to be a doomed to failure either way. Why? Let's say you meet your commitment, you start exercising regularly, now you made it, you're done, you succeeded. But then you're like, okay, I'm done, I did it. Now, and then you usually fall off the wagon often. Now, let's say you don't meet your expectation, you're left with as a failure, and you say, I failed and I give up. So that's an expectation. A commitment is defined and characterized by a series of successes and failures and ups and downs. So when you commit to something, if you have a bad day, or if you fall off the wagon, or if you stop for a short period of time, you just start again. Okay? So the first and most important thing about changing any lifestyle change is the commitment. Now, what's the best strategy? So the best strategy, I think, is to harness the power of habit. Now, there's a great book that discusses this called Atomic Habits, which my Rebbe recommends a lot because it's a great book to help you with behavior change. And the key is, before you start thinking about what type of exercise you're going to do or how long you're going to do it, step one is to create the habit of regular exercise, okay? And once you've established that habit, then you can tweak, you can adjust, okay, the time, the type, how intense, how not intense, etc. So what I would recommend, and what is actually recommended in this book, is that you start with focusing only on the habit. And I want you to start, if you're a person who's never exercised consistently before, I want you every day to walk at a pace that's slightly uncomfortable for 2 minutes. Do not go beyond 2 minutes. Only 2 minutes. Right? So that means that you can't go more than 2 minutes. There is no reason that one cannot walk for 2 minutes. Make it a set time. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm walking for 2 minutes, and it's gonna walk a little at a fast pace. Only 2 minutes. When your clock says 2 minutes, you stop, you go home. Okay? Now, what you'll find is that once you establish this habit, you're gonna have a hard time stopping at 2 minutes. You're gonna wanna keep going. You're gonna wanna keep going. And after a couple of months of this, maybe, right? No, we have no expectations. We're going to commit to this. You're going to find that this is something that that's part of your life, and you're going to, next thing you know, I actually had a patient I did this with. I said, you can't go more than 2 minutes. 6 months later, he came back to me and said, now I'm doing 30 minutes 5 times a week, and he's pushing it up because he started with the 2 minutes, and then once it happened, he just kept wanting to go, and he enjoyed it, and now it's something that's part of his life and he enjoys doing. And now he's at this point, we can talk about, maybe we go a little bit higher intensity, maybe we try this type of exercise instead of that type of exercise. We can adjust things. But if you don't have the habit, focusing on all those details, all that sort of specifics, the complications, it's going to overwhelm you. It's going to get you confused, and most people, when they're in a state of confusion or they're overwhelmed, they just do nothing. And that's sort of the reality. So first establish the habit, and once then you've established the habit, it could take a week, it could take a month, it could take 6 months, whatever it takes. We're establishing the habit, because the success with these things is not about how much weight do I lose or what can I do in 6 months from now. We're talking about a 2, 5, 10-year timeline. Okay, so if it takes you 6 months to develop the habit, but now you have a habit for 10 years, right? You're going to be healthier. Just no question. People run into the problem because they have an expectation. They say, I'm going to start my couch to 5K, my workout program, my gym membership, and then when they don't meet whatever that expectation was, they quit. So first establish the habit, then we tweak everything else. And I think that's the secret for a lot of things. I mean, I think that's the secret for a lot of things with when it has to do with behavior change.
I'd like to add a gloss to what you're saying. It's a beautiful idea. This is the way to make my habit change and make it permanent and do what Chazal have told us. So the Rambam tells us we have to do, which is exercise every day. How do you make it holy? How do you have the kavanah that I'm doing something holy? This is just a suggestion, but it's something that I personally found very powerful. I like to, before I do my 2 minutes or whatever my habit is, I like to make a bracha. And people say, how do you make a bracha? What bracha did Chazal give us for exercise? Very simple bracha. Asher Yatzar. Asher Yatzar, if you know what the words mean, it's about how wonderful my body is and how God keeps it working, God keeps it flowing. So obviously, Asher Yatzar is triggered by first relieving oneself. So I make sure I relieve myself right before I exercise. And when I say Asher Yatzar, I have in mind that this is not only for what I just did, but what I'm about to do.
Right.
Let's wrap here and give people this challenge to try to make their 2 minute.
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
I think that one of the things I've found, like I deal with a lot of people who struggle with addiction, like drugs, alcohol, smoking mostly, is it seems to me, and I'm not an expert on this, but it seems to me the Yetzer Hara is usually getting you not to start. Okay? Momentum and inertia is always your best friend after you start. Means the Yetzer Hara will always try to get you not to begin the activity. But once you've started the activity, it's much easier to continue than it ever was to start. So the kavana is right now, this exercise is not just about getting healthier exercise. This is about flexing your Yetzer Hara fighting muscles, right? So that, okay, how do I get myself to start? And then once you're going, you'll find, and this is the key, is that make it small, make it easy, and develop a habit. The Yetzer Hara hates habits when they're against it, but it loves habits. It uses habits, but it hates them also, I'm guessing.
Well said. That is the key to living as B'Tselem Elokim and not as Behema. Until next time, be gesund.